Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Welcome to Masechta Menachos. We start with the Mishnah, Kol HaMenachos, Shenikmutzu Shaloi Lishman Ksheris. All the Menachos that the Kmitza was done to them, Shaloi Lishman Ksheris. So just as a brief akdama, Menachos, like Zvachim, like Karbanis, has 4 stages of the Avodah. You have Kmitza, which parallels Shchita by a carbon, by an animal. You have Shchita, Kabbalah, Halacha, and Zrika, which we learned in Zvachim. So Menachos also parallels those 4 avodas in its own way. You have Kmitza, which parallels to Shchita. And then you have putting it in a Klisharis, that Kmitza you put into a Klisharis, that parallels Kabbalah's Dam. And then you have Hagasha, Halacha, bring it to the Mizbeach. And Aktara parallels the Zrikas Hadam by a carbon. So you have Aktara, you put the Kmitza onto the Maracha, the fire of the Mizbeach. So these avodas have to be done Lishman. So here you have a case of a Kohen who took a mincha. Rashi says, for example, he took a minchas marcheshes. Right? So as far as the types of minchas are concerned, interestingly, the Tiferes Yisrael gives us a simon. He says, the word scharchar with a samach, scharchar, hints to the different types of menachos. So samach stands for soiles, right? They're just fine flour made of chitim, and you pour some oil and levina. That's the most basic mencha, soiles, mencha soiles. Then you have the ches and the reish, schar. The ches stands for machvas, and the reish is mar cheshes. So you have machvas and mar cheshes, which is pretty much the same type of mincha, the same ingredients. It's just the only difference is one is fried in a flat pan, and marcheshes is a deeper pot. And then you have the other ches reish are mafetaner, which stands for chalas and rakikim. Okay, that's another kind of mincha which we'll learn about. So you have these types of menachos, and you have the avodah or the avodas that have to be done to each mincha, and they have to be done lishma. So the Mishnah starts, Kol HaMenachos shenikmutzu shaloi lishman ksheris. All the menachos that you did shaloi lishman, Rashi says, Lamash, you did a minchas marcheshes, and when the Kohen did the Kmitza, he said, Arini kaimetz l'shem achvas. Okay, problem. It's shaloi lishman. It's ksheris, nevertheless it's kosher, which means that you have to be makter the Kmitza on the Mizbeach, and the shirayim can be eaten by the Kahanim, no problem. Elo, shaloi olu l'baylam l'shem chayvel. The Bailam, let's say it was misnadiv a minchas marcheshes, and the Kohen did it l'shem minchas machvas, Bailam still has to bring a minchas marcheshes. Right? It's loy olu l'baylam shem chayva. The Bailam didn't fulfill his obligation by bringing a minchas marcheshes that was done l'shem minchas machvas. Chutz, minchas choyte minchas kenois. Minchas choyte minchas kenois is not even kosher. Right? So all of the menachos shaloi lishman is kosher, it's just the Bailam has to bring another one. Right, but it's kosher in the sense that you do the kmitza, you bring it up the mizbeach, and makter it, and the shiraim are eaten by kahanim and all that stuff. But minchas chayte, minchas kenois, that is pasal legamra. Right, shekomts in shaloi lishman, nasan bekli v'holach v'hikter shaloi lishman. Yeah, if he did it shaloi lishman, or even here the Mishnah says, even if he did it lishman v'shaloi lishman, or lishman v'shaloi lishman, even if he had both, it was a hybrid. You had a machshav of lishman, and you also had a machshav of shloi lishman. Or the opposite. First you had a machshav of oy shloi lishman v'lishman, psulos. That would passel the minchas choyte minchas kenois. Now, by the way, just briefly, what's a minchas choyte and what's a minchas kenois? So let's just explain that. A minchas choyte is a mincha of a sinner, literally. What kind of sinner brings a mincha? So there are 3 averas where the Torah allows the Baal Aveira, the one who did the Aveira, wants to bring a carbon based on his financial status, based on his financial abilities. Yeah? If somebody's very wealthy, he brings an animal. If somebody's not so wealthy, he brings an oifus. And if somebody's mamish poor, then he can bring a mincha. It's called a minchas chayta. It's called, anyways, the carbon oil of a yored, these three Aveiras that the Torah allows you to bring based on your financial abilities, that's called the carbon oil of a yored, is by a shvuas bitoy. Somebody swears a shvuas bitoy falsely, a shvuas eidus. Somebody swears that he doesn't know testimony for somebody else. And then you have Tumas Mikdash v'Kedashav. Right, we learned about this in Masechta Shavuos. That's Minchas Chayta. So minchas choyte shlo lishman would be pasal lagamri. Minchas knois, also minchas knois is a mincha of a soita. The Baal, when he warns his wife not to be misyachid with a certain man, and she violates that warning, then the husband brings his wife to the kohen, and they prepare the meisoita, but the husband also has to bring what's called a minchas knois. So those are the two menachos that are the exception, that if you shecht it, shaloi lishman, it's pasal lagamri. Okay? Now, it's not just shaloi lishman. The Mishnah just explained that even if it's lishman v'shaloi lishman, or shaloi lishman v'lishman, it's also pasal. By the way, why does it have to be both cases? First lishman, then shaloi lishman, or first shaloi lishman, then lishman? What's the difference? If you tell me a hybrid doesn't work, a hybrid doesn't work. So Rashi points out in the last line of the Rashi in the Mishnah, Rashi says that sometimes you might assume when a person has two contradictory thoughts, right? You say tfos lashon achron or tfos lashon rishon, right? Maybe you go after the last thought, or maybe you go sometimes after the first initial thought. So here the chiddush of the Mishnah is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the shloi lishma was first or last. It's always possible. Now the Mishnah explains case of lishman v'shloi lishman. What's a case of lishman v'shloi lishman? L'shem minchas choyta, which is lishman, right? You bring in minchas choyta. L'shem minchas nedava, that's shloi lishman v'lishman. That's a case of lishman v'shloi lishman. And what's a case of shloi lishman v'lishman? L'shem minchas nedava, l'shem minchas choyta. First you did a minchas l'shem minchas nedava, which is shloi lishman, because you bring in minchas choyta, and then you had a l'shem minchas choyta. Okay, that's the Heilige Mishnah. So to sum up the Mishnah again, Menachos shaloi lishman is kosher, which means that you do the Aktara and the Kahanim can eat the Shirayim, except that the Bailim has to bring another one. But by Minchas Choyte, Minchas Knois, doesn't matter if it's just Shaloi Lishman or Lishman v'Shaloi Lishman or Shaloi Lishman v'Lishman, it's Pasal Lagamri. Zuk the Heilige Gemura. Lomid lemisna Ella, listna v'lo yol b'Hashem Chayva. Why does the Mishnah say Ella? The Mishnah is bothered, the Gemara is bothered by the word Ella. Just say kol menachos shenikmetzu shaloi lishman ksheris. It's kosher. It's kosher. V'lo yalu l'ba'al chayva. What's the ella? Says the Gemara. Hakamashmalan. L'bailim u'dulol shem chayva haminchi guf ksheir v'asal sheniya, which means that it's only as it relates to the bailim that this carbon didn't work. Right? The bailim has to bring another carbon. But as far as the other halachas that relates to this carbon is concerned, that you have to continue and follow through as the Torah requires. Can't be mashana. Can't continue mashana and say, oh, I did the shechita shel lishma, I'll do everything else shel lishma. It doesn't work. You have to follow through with everything else lishma. The only thing that changed over here, the only thing that's different about this carbon at this point is that the Bailam has to bring another one. But if you did the shechita by the kmitza, by a minchas marcheshes, l'shem minchas machvas, you have to continue doing everything else, l'shem minchas marcheshes, l'shma. Can't just be mashana everything now because you're mashana once, right? You did one thing wrong, now I can, okay, whatever. Such a big concept here, no? That if you do one thing wrong, oh, you have one bad day, made one mistake, shine. I can be mashana, I can do everything else shaloi l'shma. No, you had one bad moment, now get back on track. Such a great musar. Yeah? Da'amar Rava, K'd Rava, Da'amar Rava, Oyla sheshachta shaloi l'shma, Asur lizrik damo shaloi l'shma. Iba say mesvar, Iba say mekra. What's the svara? Iba say mesvar, Misham de Meshani b'kalhani, Lashani b'vanezel? Just because Meshana in the Kmitza, let's say, so now all of a sudden he has a heter, he has a pass to be Meshana with everything else? No, it's not logical to say that. Iba say mekra, moitzes v'secha tishmar, v'asiso kasher, nadart l'shem l'kecha, nedava. Finish off with Nadava. The Gemara's bothered. Nadava? Nederhu. Karla Neder v'kol Nadava? Well, how can you call a Neder a Nadava? The Torah starts with Kasha Nadarto. Made a Neder. Then it's called a Nadava. Elam Kamasha Nadarto sisi a Neder. If you follow through with your Neder, then Avad it's going to be a Neder. V'em lav. But if you don't follow through with the carbon as a Neder, the way you're Neder, then it becomes a Nadava. A Nadava mishar l'shenuyeba. And a dava certainly is us to be mashana. That's learned from psukim. So mamela, that's the makar. If somebody's mishana from neder to nedava, in fact, the Torah still calls it a nedava, right? It was a neder, and now it turned into a nedava. How? Because you're mishana. Okay, but it's still called a nedava. You still have to follow through with it as an nedava. Okay, so we have a svara and a pasuk in Rava. Why you cannot be mishana even if you mishana once, and that's why the Mishnah uses ella. Says the Gemara, amazing what one ella can teach us, no? It's amazing. One word ella teaches us this halacha, like the eyes of the Gemara and the Mishnah, like, ella. Must be, I see halacha here. Incredible. Okay. Says the Gemara, Lei Masin Zloik Reb Shimon. The high Reb Shimon Bar Yechui. Mishnah is not Reb Shimon Bar Yechui. Yeah, it's not geschmack to say that. The time Reb Shimon never called Menachos, Shenik Mitzvah Shleil Shmak Sheiris, V'ol Lebayel Shem Chayva. All Menachos that the Kmitz was done Shleil Shman, it's kosher, and not only kosher, V'ol Lebayel Shem Chayva, it's mamish mefurish, not like our Mishnah. It says that the Bailam is Yoitza. Doesn't have to bring another one. Yeah, why? She'ena Menachos Damis L'Zvachim. By Zvachim, Reb Shimon is Moida. That it's lo yalu leban shem chayva. Menachos, yes. Shekein hakoymetz machvas l'shem cheshes maseh mechichen oleo. She machvas. Kohen takes, let's say, kmitza from a minchas machvas, and he does it l'shem minchas mercheshes. Then it's not going to help. That machshava shlo lishma is not going to help. Why? Because his maisim prove otherwise. Contradicts his machshava. Everybody sees it's a machvas. Or chareva. Let's say minchas choyte, minchas kanois, which is dry, doesn't have any shemen in it. L'shem blula. And you have a machshava, I'm doing it l'shem blula. Again, maseh machichan ala shi chareva. Everybody sees that it's chareva, it's dry, right? Your thought doesn't matter because your maisim are louder. It reminds me of a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, one of my favorite quotes. He says, who you are speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying, right? If you have a stira between who you are and what you're saying, which we'll see soon in a Rashi, that machshava, shlishma really means speaking, I can't hear what you're saying, right? The mais is much more powerful. So the mais is mechiach on what the carbon is. So it's not going to help. The machshava is not going to pass. That's Reb Shimon's svara. Al bezvachim erekin, you know this far. Shchita achas lekulan, zrika achas lekulan, kabula achas lekulan. It's all one ma'aser, right? It's shchita achas, it's zrika achas, kabula achas. Says the Gemara. Okay, honich l'Ravashi the Amar kad bekoimetz machvas l'shem mercheshes, kad bekoimetz minchas machvas l'shem minchas mercheshes, mastisim mincha l'shem minchi. El Rabbi Rava Michael Meimar. So just to give a little bit of introduction to what the Gemara just said, and then we'll say it again. But basically, the Gemara in a couple of lines, a little bit lower down here in the Daf, the Gemara is going to ask a stira b'das Reb Shimon. One brisa Reb Shimon seems to say that Shlei Lishma by Menachos is alu l'bayil l'shem chayva. Another brisa seems to say it's lo yalu l'bayil l'shem chayva, like our Mishnah. So which one is it? So we have a few Amoraim who tackle this issue and try to reconcile the two brises. Rav Ashi came along and said, I have a pashta teretz, right? When he says on a mercheshes that it's a machvas, then it doesn't work. His dibur is dvar b'telim. Everybody sees what it is. But if he mentions the word mincha, right? I'm doing this l'shem minchas machvas, and it's really a minchas mercheshes. That word mincha, that gives it power, because they're both a mincha. So that would passel as far as the Bailam is concerned. It's lo yalu l'bayil l'shem chayva. So okay, so once you have this chiluk in Reb Shimon, right? Reb Shimon himself is machalik between if the Shalei Lishma involved the word mincha or not. If it didn't involve the word mincha, then according to Reb Shimon, it's still alu l'bayil l'shem chayva because ma'asav mechichen. And if it did involve the word mincha, then according to Reb Shimon, it's lo yalu. Okay, so then the Mishnah could be in a case of where he said the word mincha and the Reb Shimon is moida. So Reb Shimon could still fit with our Mishnah because even in Reb Shimon there's a chiluk. And our Mishnah could be talking about the chiluk of where he said mincha beforehand. But a Rabbi Meimar, According to Rabbi Rava, you won't be able to fit our Mishnah with Reb Shimon. Why not? Gemara's going to explain. How does Rabbi answer the steer of Adas Reb Shimon? He says, Kan shinoi kodesh, kan shinoi kodesh, kan shinoi bailam. It depends what the Shlo Lishma was about. If the Shlo Lishma was about what type of mincha you're bringing, it's called shinoi kodesh, right? From machvas to marcheshes, right? There, ma'asav mechichan allow, right? Everybody sees you're bringing a machvas, you're thinking of marcheshes. It's not going to help. Okay, so that's where it's alu. When is it lo yalu? The other Bryce and Reb Shimon, that's when you're Rishana the Bailam, right? Reuven and Shimon are both bringing a minchas machvas, and you're taking Reuven's minchas machvas, you do the kmitza l'shem Shimon. There's nothing in your maisa, in that kmitza, that shows that you're doing it for the right Bailam. So if you have a machshava l'shem Bailam acheres, like you're going to do it l'shem Shimon, it's for sure going to passel it, and it's lo yolu b'am shem chayva. That's how Rabbah answers the stira. Okay, if that's how you answer the stira and Reb Shimon and two brises, you won't be able to fit our Mishnah then with Reb Shimon, because Hamas Nisan, our Mishnah is Shina Koideshu. Mishnah is talking about Shina Koidesh. Diktani, Ketzad Lishman V'Shlo Lishman, L'Shem Minchas Chayta, L'Shem Minchas Nadava. Right? Our Mishnah is talking about Shina Koidesh. And by Shina Koidesh, Rabbah says, Reb Shimon holds that it's all L'Bal Shem Chayta because Maisa Mechichan. So it can't be Reb Shimon. V'Namik T'Mishani Rava, Kan B'Koimetz Mincha L'Shem Mincha, Kan B'Koimetz Mincha L'Shem Zevach. Right? There are two types of Shlo Lishma when you do a mincha. When the Kohen does the kmitza by mincha, you could do Shlo Lishma l'shem mincha achar, minchas machvas l'shem minchas mercheshes, or you could do the kmitza of a mincha l'shem zevach, l'shem a behema. Okay, let's l'shem oilech ve'es shlamim. Gemara says, so there would be puzzle. There would be loy alu. But if it's l'shem mincha achar, it's alu. So it can't be Reb Shimon because of Mesnisa Mincha L'Shem Mincha. Our Mishnah is talking about Mincha L'Shem Mincha. You switch it from one Mincha to the next. And there, according to Reb Shimon, it should be Alu. And the Mishnah says not like that. The Mishnah says Lo Yalu. How do you know it's Mincha L'Shem Mincha? Diktani, Shlo L'Shma V'L'Shman, L'Shem Minchas Nadav, L'Shem Minchas Chayta. Right? So we're talking about you changing it from one Mincha to the next, and yet the Mishnah says that it's Lo Yalu, and Reb Shimon would say, according to Rava, that is Alu. El Rabba V'Rava Mechaverta Masnisan Deloike Reb Shimon. Mishnah cannot be Reb Shimon. Okay? Now the Gemara is going to go back to the steer of Adas Reb Shimon, right? Gemara is going to say like this: Reb Shimon, Reb Shimon. Where's the steer in the brises? So we already had one brise in the beginning of Amud Beis, right? Second line, the tiny Reb Shimon Omer, any Menachos that was nikmetzu shelo lishman, it's kosher ve'alu l'bashem chayva. So there, Reb Shimon clearly says in the brise that it's alu. There's another Reb Shimon. It says lo yalu. The tiny Reb Shimon Omer, kodesh kedashim hikachatz v'ka'asham. Yesh men kechatas, yesh men ka'asham. Minchas chayta rei kechatas. So the Torah compares menachos to chatas and asham. So chatas and asham have different halachas, right? Chatas l'shlo lishma is pasul, asham shlo lishma is kosher. So menachos, some of them are compared to chatas, l'shlo lishma would be pasul, and some of them would be compared to an asham, the shlo lishma is kosher. Okay, let's see. Kodesh kedashim mi kachatz kashim, Reb Shimon says. Yesh men kachatz, yesh men kashim. Minchas chayta rei kachatas, levikach kamatz shlo lishma psula. Minchas chayta, if you do shlo lishma, it's pasul, like kachatas. Psula kachatas. Minchas nadava rei ka'asham. Minchas nadava is like an asham. Levikach kamatz shlo lishma, ksheira, it's kosher, shlo lishma, and yet there's another step. V'ka'asham, ma asham kosher ve'ena meratza. Af minchas nadava ksheira ve'ena meratza. So to minchas nadav is kosher and it's not maratza. So clearly, again, Reb Shimon says over here that menachos are no different than zvachim, as it relates to shlo lishma, right? By asham it's kosher, it's lo yalu l'ba'al shem chayva, and so too by a minchas nadav. So how do you reconcile the two Reb Shimon's over here? We explained, Rabbi already said that Shina Kodesh you have Ma'aseh Mechichan Oleh, because if you have a Machshava on Minchas Machvas Dud L'Shem Archeshes, right, then your Ma'asim are disproving that Machshava, and Memela, it would be Oil L'Ba'al Shem Chayva. But Shina Bailam, if you do it L'Shem another Bailam, let's say you do Minchas Machvas of Ruvain, L'Shem Minchas Machvas of Shimon, then there's no Ma'aseh Mechichan, and therefore it would be possible even according to Reb Shimon. Abai says, 1 second, slow down. We just compared with a hekesh, Menachos to Zvachim. By Zvachim, there's no chiluk between Shina Kodesh and Shina Bailam. They're both possible. Right? They're both loy alu. So loy alu b'al Shem chayva. So also over here, Mirch de Machshav the pasuk one akeshi. It's a hekesh to Asham, Chatz and Asham. Mali Shina Kodesh, Mali Shina Bailam. Just like by an Asham, right? It doesn't matter if it's Shina Kodesh, Shina Bailam. It's loy alu. Bailam has to bring another one. So too by Menachos. Marlei. So Rabbi answered, Maseh mechichen the Kamer Reb Shimon svarahi. The Maseh mechichen that Reb Shimon says is really a svara. The Reb Shimon darsh time of the crow, and Reb Shimon darshan's time of the crow, right? He gives reasons, svaras behind halachas and the psukim of the Torah. So once there are svaras and he darshan's time of the crow, then you could say very pashat. By zvachim, you don't have a svara to be mechalik shina kodesh shina bailam because the Karbanos are all the same, right? The avodas are all the same. So machshaved lo minkar apostle achmana. That's why it's loyol l'bam shem chayv over there. Machshaved the minkara, by a mincha, it's minkara, right? If he changes from machvas to marchash, everybody sees it's a machvas. Then loy apostle achmana. There, the Torah didn't pass l'mamel. It's all l'bam shem chayv.